Welcome to Tangential Soup, a weekly podcast discussing life in Australia, technology, food, fitness, and the like, hosted by myself, David Caddy, Melburnian, independent developer and tea enthusiast, as well as my good childhood friend Alexander Carr, Sydney-sider, slave to the man, karate practitioner, and lover of adventure. This week we talk about crime-fighting robots, cryptocurrencies, and a trip to the Philippines. So, you saw this robot, Alex? That's this little egg-shaped dude that was apparently picking on the homeless?
I did. Yes. Although the title of the article is a bit misleading because it says, crime-fighting robot retired after launching alleged war on the homeless.
In the Washington Post?
In the Washington Post, yeah. So it didn't wage a war on the homeless. Basically what seems to have happened is a company or a business has hired this robot to act as security for it around its building because it was being vandalized and there were a couple of break-ins. And what has happened is basically the function the robot performs is it just simply patrols around and takes photos.
Yes.
So it's not really security so much as just a deterrent, I guess. And the company themselves have released a statement, I think, at one point, and whoever was making the statement suggested that it was deterring homeless people from staying around the shelter. And then everybody's got upset about this, and basically they've decided that this robot was waging a war on the homeless people, which it was not at all. It's just simply walking around taking photos, and it's got a very bad spin from the media. So I think the robot's technology is quite interesting because basically it's a moving camera.
Yes. It's just a very sturdy looking piece of equipment by this startup company called Nightscope.
Yes, exactly.
And then the company involved here was the RSPCA, was it? Or
no, it was some kind of...
It's animal related anyway.
Yeah.
SPCA.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's all a bit ridiculous because really it just tracks from the purpose of the technology.
Yeah. And, can be rented for $6 an hour.
Which I find is quite interesting because surely this would still be at least relatively expensive technology, I would think. I mean, even if it operates on the same premise as, one of those self-driving vacuum cleaners that Roomba, is it? They
Roomba,
move around
yes.
Yeah, they move around the house on your own. I'd imagine it's a similar thing, right? It's just in robot and camera form.
Pretty much, and it goes very slow, and it seems like it stops when there's anything like moving in its general vicinity. So the smarts are pretty dumb, and it seems like this company goes and sets it up in the particular patrol route that it's going to go on. So really, it doesn't need to do that much in terms of sensing its environment. And it just keeps traveling along that particular route, constantly taking photos, like you say, sort of 360 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So there's probably not a lot in it. It is a very sturdy unit and probably has to be very heavy so people can't just pick it up and do all sorts of things with it. Although a previous one did end up in a river somewhere, didn't it?
Yes, it did. And apparently this one ended up with some feces smeared on it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. To me, that just says a bit more about Los Angeles than it does about the technology. But
probably. I mean, it's a fairly oppressive-looking unit, isn't it? Even though it isn't actually doing anything, that's very oppressive.
Well, it is, yeah. And sorry, it's actually San Francisco, not Los Angeles.
Similar vibe.
Similar vibe, I suppose so. I've never been there. Yeah, but obviously it's technology we're going to be seeing pretty shortly in the near future. Quite commonly around the place. I'd say in the next 10 years we'll be seeing these robots all around the place because they're a lot cheaper than having a human security guard, and they're probably a bit better as well because they're not going to fall asleep on the job.
No, the other thing, they can't actually take any action to prevent anything. They can only document.
Well, that's a good point. Well, they can call the police though, and I think that's the main part of a security guard's job is just to alert the authorities if somebody needs to be stopped. That's my
Yeah,
understanding.
that's true. That's true. They can't deal with too much.
Yeah, unless they're one of those like the people that guard the money for banks or something like that. Pretty sure they can take action.
Yeah, so I'll have a link into the show notes for this. You should really go have a look. It's a weird looking thing. I don't know how I'd feel if I saw this trundling down the footpaths. I want to keep clear, but I don't know. It's got a mean, like, blue light eye sort of thing too.
It's actually got cat stuck all over it. Did you notice that?
Well, yeah, that's because of the SPCA connotation for this particular unit, which they dubbed K9, because the actual robot itself is called a K5.
Ah, right.
Or like the model, and then for this particular unit they called K9 because, you know, the whole dog connection.
Well, look, I think it's decent.
The first one was for the Washington Harbour, doing patrols
Yes.
around there. That's the one that ended up in the water, and they had to replace it.
Do you know what's occurred to me with this, though? And now I kind of thought of it because of the whole fact that apparently feces had been smeared on the robot. But what if it drives over poop?
That's
But it'll
probably fine.
Smell like poo,
Well, it would, but it wouldn't affect anything.
apart from the smell. But I guess you're right. So I suppose there must be a maintenance schedule.
Yeah, they'd have to bring it in and hose it down from time to time.
Hose the poop off.
But yeah, it's a fairly simple mechanism. I could probably go for a very long time without. Although, how is it powered? Did they say? I suppose it's electric. Does it recharge itself? Does it have a docking station? Doesn't mention
No
anything
idea.
about that, but it probably does. Like the Roombas,
Yeah,
just goes back and plugs itself in from time to time.
would make sense. How long do you reckon it'll be until we have something like this in our homes? Obviously, probably with some arms and legs, or a more all-terrain type thing. Doesn't seem like it'd be too far away, though.
What would it do in your house, though?
Well, basic housework, I guess.
Okay.
If you think about it, a robot could... I mean, there is already a robot that can sweep the floors, but, it could maybe do more general tidying.
General tasks are hard, though. That's where robots fall down in sort of the current climate. You can get a machine to do any one particular task, and it will excel at that. But to try and have a robot that does or can do anything, basically, is very hard. So given that fact, I'd say what you're asking for, it's going to be quite a ways away. But if you wanted a specific robot to vacuum your floors, that already exists. If you wanted one to, I don't know, make your bed, there's probably something for that already exists that you could install. But they're very application specific at the moment.
I remember seeing something about a self-making bed. Basically, the covers were attached to the sides of the beds, which were also rails. And then, like, I don't know, I suppose it had some kind of, I guess, tolerance in the way that they were attached to the rails, so that you could kind of sleep under them quite comfortably. Then when you get out of bed, you just press a button, and the rails just like tighten the cover over the top of the bed, and then slide up to the top, and then it's just made the bed. And I think the pillows are attached to the bed as well. So I suppose it's a bit unwieldy in some ways, and you can't really rearrange your bed, but. Yeah, I did see that technology, but I can see how you're right. You couldn't really get that into a Roomba very easily.
Because really what you want is like a Android, a human sort of replicating type robot is the ultimate, because everything on our houses have been adapted for the human form. And that's a fair way away. Unless we adapt to a house that is more suited for robots working in. Which I don't think anyone would be that keen on.
Okay, so here's an idea. Like, what's one of the more annoying things about, like, cooking and stuff? It's doing the dishes afterwards.
Yes, and we have a dishwasher already. Yes,
well, we do have a dishwasher, but think of this, right? What if all of you could buy, like, special plates or, special dishes, basically, with some technology in them that the robot could identify. And then, it's a robot with, like, arms or something. and maybe the dishes could have some metal in them, and the arms could be magnetic, and then it could like reach onto the table, grab the dishes, and then like know its way back to the dishwasher and have like a loading program for loading the dishes, and it could also sweep the floors, and just do some general tidying. It's got some few purposes.
Yeah.
And as long as you had a flat apartment, which I mean a lot of people do, especially in the city, like it could just be on wheels.
Yeah, you could probably make that. I imagine it would be quite slow though.
Well, yeah, but I mean you could just turn it on like when you leave the house.
Yeah. I could see that working. Maybe we'll get something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, they are doing some crazy things. It's just a matter of getting the price down and manufacturing them. And also making them safe is a big thing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? I suppose the more moving parts.
You've got to have enough sensors everywhere to, like, if there's any sort of human or cat or, whatever around, that it will not apply force above what it can tolerate, sort of thing. Which does exist, but that drives up the cost exponentially.
So what you're talking about is making sure that it doesn't run anything over or anything like that.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Well, also, I imagine with this thing, if it's picking up dishes and that, it would have some sort of arm, right?
Yeah.
So you can program it to pick up a plate, but then what if your face is in the way of the robot and the table, and it's just going to pick up the plate? It'll just plow through you, you know what I mean?
I get you, yeah. I mean, I don't know why your face would be between those two things.
No,
definitely.
No. Well, that's why, in most manufacturing situations where they've got robots working, they're operating within cages, and the robot has to be shut down when anyone's doing maintenance on them. But there are this new breed of robots that within the arm itself is just like covered in sensors, and if there's pressure that it feels that is not part of the application that it's actually, or the function that it's currently performing, then it will back off or shut down or what have you.
Oh my god, that sounds like a nightmare. I bet those things would be like misdiagnosing things all the time and just...
Well, that's your other problem too, right? Like, what's your tolerance on various things? And
yeah.
if you go too far the other way, then it becomes useless. So it's about fine-tuning these things.
Well, no, I'm sure there is a balance, but that must be horribly annoying to work with.
Yeah.
Especially the
But then the idea is you can have human workers working alongside robot workers, which for some things you need, or would be very advantageous, because you might have one part of the job that is incredibly mundane, doesn't require a lot of skill, but might require a certain amount of force that you can have the robot doing. Then you can have the human come along, and then while the robot's holding it or manipulating it, they can finish it off and do the skilled part of the job.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, so there's a big demand for it. They just haven't quite cracked it yet.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. I mean, obviously the end goal is to have most things done by robots, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, but not everything will be able to. And in the medium term, I suppose, we want more and more stuff done by robots. But for a complicated manufacturing process, often you'll still have one or two pieces that, at least for the very foreseeable future, will need to be done by humans. Ultimately, I imagine that will be taken over, but then you're talking about a really incredibly smart robot, or one that has a huge amount of articulation range and all this sort of thing. So that's the medium goal, to get as much done as possible with robots, and then in that case you might need them working alongside human counterparts.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
Well, it's all interesting stuff. I know that we kind of talk a lot about the future of, well, a lot of things really on this show, but
Robo Armageddon.
Robo Armageddon. Hopefully not.
Robogeddon? Something?
Robogeddon. Oh yeah, some kind of AI-geddon.
Well, soon it will do most of the jobs for us.
Well, it will, won't it? It'll be an interesting time.
Mm.
If nothing wipes us out first, which it may.
It may. So what is this interesting story about cryptocurrencies, Alex?
Well, I mean, not so much interesting. I'm sure that a lot of people have done this.
Not interesting. In fact, very boring.
Well, it's a little bit interesting. I'll tell you the story, and you can make up your mind.
Okay.
So, someone I work with has actually been interested in cryptocurrencies for a little while, and she actually bought Bitcoin back when it was at about $500 Australian. Now, as you probably know, the cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, or mainly Bitcoin, has just gone crazy recently. It's now at about 20,000 Australian dollars. So really my interesting story was simply that I actually know someone who bought Bitcoin and held on to it up to now and made a profit of, oh God, what's that? 500,000, 400%? Am I getting that right? I'm not getting that right.
No.
4,000%.
Yes, I think.
4,000%.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
Which, yeah, is insane, obviously.
Is she selling out?
I believe she's partially sold out now.
Does seem like a good time to sell.
Yeah. Without having really followed Bitcoin that much, I do know that it's had a bit of a dip recently, due to various factors. But other cryptocurrencies are still charging ahead.
Although you say that, because Bitcoin has gone up as far as it has, it seems a lot of like the other cryptocurrencies, which they refer to as altcoins, aren't doing as well as they were previously. I mean, the popularity has grown and there's a lot of interest in it, but they've sort of come back in their profitability, especially in terms of mining and that, because to buy any of those other ones, you need to have Bitcoin. So it all like goes through Bitcoin. And because it's sort of gone skyrocketing, the exchange rate between them has sort of gone a bit wacky, apparently.
Okay. To be honest, I actually didn't know that.
But yeah, there are so many other ones out there. Dogecoin, Litecoin, Ethereum.
Yeah, Ethereum's the other big one, isn't it?
Yeah. That's the one a lot of people are mining these days. It doesn't really make sense to mine Bitcoin anymore unless you have really specialized hardware.
And the mining is... See, I haven't really paid enough attention to this, to be honest. And it would still even maybe be a profitable thing to get into, but just...
I think maybe it is profitable. I was watching a few videos on this the other day, actually. It is definitely profitable to mine some of those other altcoins right now. Not hugely profitable. Like, with a single good GPU, you can make like 30 to 40 cents a day sort of thing. That's factoring in electricity costs as well.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, it's not too bad. You can pay off a graphics card in like a year or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And that's using it to its full capacity, though, is it?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, 24/7. But the rest of the system can remain idle. But, I mean, you could probably almost do that with your computer. Put in a far more efficient GPU, and then the rest of the system's probably good enough, and it can just sit idle. You could have it chugging away in the background.
Okay. That's an interesting idea. I don't know if I get into it, to be honest.
No.
Because then I'd have to buy the GPU.
Yeah. But you can get a good one, apparently, for not that much money if you get, like, a ATI.
Okay. I mean, I've currently got an ATI in there, but it's about 6 years old now.
Yes. Yeah, you've got to get one of the newer ones.
Because
they're, well, not specifically designed for this necessarily, but whatever the changes they've made in more recent times has made it far more efficient at doing the hashing algorithms.
Right, okay. Honestly, I don't think it's something for me at the moment. Would you ever consider doing it?
I'm tempted. I did actually also see this the other day. There was a video that came through on my YouTube stream that, although this is kind of nuts, but someone has gone to the trouble of writing an app for iPhones that does mining. And it will just run in the background and keep chugging away. But the iPhone hardware is not really at all designed for this. So it's really just a novelty. You're not actually winning in terms of electricity costs. But I am kind of tempted, because what if you start mining some coins, like as opposed to just getting it paid out straight away, and you just sit on those, maybe one of these other ones will go eventually like Bitcoin does. And then, like your friend, or your colleague, you could be making
Yeah.
4,000%.
Well, it seems to me like if Bitcoin does fall over, then there's going to be something to take its place, and whether that's a combination of cryptocurrencies or Ethereum, which seems to be the likely successor.
And like we've talked about before, Bitcoin will fall over because of the way that it's been designed from a technological standpoint. It just won't be able to continue handling the processing power that it requires to handle every transaction. It's not scalable, so it will fall over at some point. It could still be a long time from now, but it will fall over, and it looks like cryptocurrencies are here to stay, so I guess one of the other ones will come up. Whether it'll go quite as gangbusters, probably not, but you could still be sitting on pretty good money, I'd say, if you start collecting it now. It's definitely a possibility.
Well, yeah.
I still think maybe IOTA is the one to get into, but you can't mine that.
Yeah, now I know that you did mention that, and
I know Microsoft and Samsung have some sort of interest in it, and it solves all the scalability problems that Bitcoin have, although a lot of these other ones also do that, so I don't know. But I feel like there's enough big players around it that it could be the one. Could be the one to watch.
But you still have to buy it with Bitcoin.
You do have, well, I don't know if you have to buy it with Bitcoin. You probably do, like all these other ones. But yeah, you can only buy into it, you can't mine it.
Okay.
So I don't know if that means it's just constantly distributed somehow, or whether every IOTA coin that ever is going to exist already exists now, or how that works. I need to do a bit more research, but
Yeah.
I've heard some smart people talking about it, and they're interested, so I feel like I should be too.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's still very cheap. 1 IOTA is going for $3.50.
Yeah, that's not bad, eh?
Yeah.
Potentially.
And
I mean,
if it goes the way of the other cryptocurrencies, then you could be making hundreds of dollars. You could make a $10 investment now that could pay off a lot.
Yes. I'm tempted. I'm very tempted to just buy at least a few, see what happens.
Yeah, so am I, actually. But it's been something I've been thinking about for a while. I haven't done anything about, which is my own fault. So
Yes, well,
there you go.
you snooze, you lose.
Exactly.
So, Alex, you're going on a big holiday.
Yes, I am. My biggest holiday for about 3 years now.
Yeah, and organised fairly last minute, really, as well.
Yeah, well, relatively last minute, I suppose.
I know you were talking about going to WA to do some diving, and you've given up on that plan.
I have.
To go diving in the Philippines.
Yes. Look, I feel that there are some destinations more than others that you need to plan ahead for. And I am generally of the impression that with Southeast Asia, you can kind of get away with just packing your bags and going, for the most part. Now, I am definitely the type of person who doesn't prepare for things very well. Fortunately, Samantha's not the same, and she's a lot more organised. But I was sitting on the couch yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, do we need a visa for the Philippines? Fortunately, Samantha had looked it up months ago, not months ago, but a while ago. I think I thought of it at the start, and then I just forgot. But that was last minute.
It's a fairly important detail.
Yeah, you kind of need to think about that. But that was basically where I was at.
Yeah. So where are you actually going in the Philippines?
No, so everything's booked. Everything's booked for the Philippines, all accommodation, everything like that. Flying into Manila, which is, I think, the capital.
Yes.
And then flying over to an island called Palawan.
Okay.
Which is, I think, one of the more popular touristy places in the Philippines. So we're going to fly into Puerto Princesa to begin with. And we're staying there for 4 or 5 days, I think. And then we're travelling up to El Nido, which is another popular place. I think that's a bit more famous for its beaches. And then we're spending another 4 or 5 days there, or maybe 6 days there. And then we're flying over to Boracay. Now, Boracay is probably one of the main touristy places in the Philippines. And I suppose it gets a bit more of that the crowds that I don't really tend to like in Southeast Asia, which is, you know, the kind of dirtier party crowds that just go over to Asia to drink, which is unavoidable in some cases. You know, you've got to go through those areas at least. But apparently it's quite nice in certain areas. There are certain spots that are more party areas, but there are also other areas that you can just sit down and relax in. So we've booked a place in Station 3 there. Now it's just a kind of small island. Boracay is kind of a smallish island, and the beach is divided into 3 stations. Station 1's like the luxury area. Station 2 is the kind of the backpackerish area, so that's the place where you tend to get the most partying. And Station 3 is a bit more naturey, but also a bit more low priced as well. We've actually gone with a fairly decently priced resort style place there that just looks over the beach. But that'll just really be our relaxing time. We'll just sit down and drink cocktails and watch the sunset over the water, you know, that kind of thing. A few more cocktails, a bit more sunset, have some massages.
The standard resort practices.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're not going to be breaking any new ground, but.
So where are you going diving? Or everywhere?
So you can actually go diving in all 3 of those places. Porto Princesa has a beach called Honda Beach. I mixed up the beach names because they're both car manufacturers. But yeah, Honda Bay is apparently quite a nice beach area. You can dive around there. El Nido is very famous for diving. Apparently, it's one of the more famous places in the world for it. And in Boracay, you can dive off the beaches there as well because it's a beautiful area. And of course, the Philippines is kind of quite islandy.
Very. Yeah.
So all the islands, or a lot of the islands, have
there's thousands of islands, isn't there?
There is, yeah, and a lot of the islands have like coral around them and everything like that. So you can actually just take a boat out there and just dive the coral or whatevs.
So is that the main activity apart from relaxating?
Yeah. Well, as you know, I wanted to go diving. So
yes, originally somewhere in WA.
Yeah, Ningaloo Reef in WA.
Tourism Australia is going to be very upset at you. Not that they're a sponsor.
They haven't really made an effort to make Ningaloo a particularly nice place to go diving. One of the main reasons I wanted to go diving is because of bleaching that's happening to the coral all around the world, actually. And this idea kind of came from someone who I met, who was talking to me about the fact that he had been to the Great Barrier Reef in about 1998, and he said it was beautiful back then. And he came back now, and he could barely recognise it because all the coral has been bleached. And if you kind of look it up, I think about 95% of the coral in the Great Barrier Reef has been bleached. Now, bleaching isn't necessarily permanent, but apparently after, I think, 2 or 3 bleaches, it will actually kill the coral. So...
still not necessarily permanent, but it would take a long time to come back, and with the conditions how they are, it probably won't happen anytime soon.
So, yeah, it seems unlikely. So basically what happens when coral is bleached is that it gets a flood of warm water from an area of the ocean, and it kills all the bacteria that sits on top of the coral, and that's why it loses all its colour. And then if you get a few of those happen a season, or a few of those happen in a shorter period of time, then it'll actually kill the coral that sits underneath as well. So currently the coral may not be dead, but it's in a kind of, I guess, shock state. And if it keeps on getting the tides of warm water, or whatever you'd say, through, it'll kill the what is coral? An animal? A tree?
Some sort of
flora?
organism.
Yeah, the organism itself. There you go. Yeah, so that hasn't really been happening in the Philippines, but obviously it's happened all along the Great Barrier Reef. Hasn't apparently happened in the Ningaloo Reefs. They're apparently the best that exist in Australia at the moment.
The difference between the east and west coasts, or just that particular reef has managed to
No, so I think all the reefs along the east coast have been bleached pretty badly. So I think it might be an east coast thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but apparently it's happening to reefs all over the world, obviously because of global warming being what it is.
Sad state of affairs.
Well, look, it is, but it's the world we live in, I guess.
So you want to see it before it all goes?
Well, very selfishly, that was actually my reason for wanting to dive. I've done a bit of diving in the not in the Philippines, in Vietnam. But really, I just did diving there to get my open water diving license, which is kind of, I guess, the entry level diving certificate that you would do. And when I was there, it had very poor visibility, and it was quite cold as well. And there wasn't really any wildlife there to see when we went diving, so it wasn't really exactly a diving experience I wanted. However, I'm hoping that the Philippines will be different, and that the recent typhoons that have been happening there haven't affected things too much. Because I know what will happen is if you get a serious storm through the area, it'll A, mess up the visibility in the water, and B, it might destroy the coral as well. Hopefully neither of those things have happened, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
And hopefully it doesn't mess up your travel arrangements either.
No. Well, no. I hope so as well. From my understanding, it's just been a lot of heavy rain, which has caused some mudslides there, which have killed a few people, unfortunately.
How are you going from one place to the other, like, once you're there? Is that all air travel, or...?
Well, because it's islands, a lot of it will be air travel. So the trip from Manila to Palawan and Palawan to Boracay and Boracay back to Manila will all be by air. But the trip from Puerto Princesa to El Nido, they're both on the Palawan Island. So they'll be done by bus.
Cool.
Which isn't too bad.
It sounds like it'll be a fun trip.
Yeah, I'm hoping it will be.
We'll see what you say when you get back, I suppose.
Yeah. Hopefully I have lots of cool things that I can post on the Tangential Soup website.
Yes.
A few cool pictures.
Lots of happy snaps. With Samantha's fancy camera.
Yeah, I was going to actually get a GoPro, but...
you should.
Can I afford it, though?
Sure. I mean, you know, at the lower end, they're not that expensive.
Yeah, look, I was looking at them and I didn't end up getting one. Maybe if I see one for cheap over in the Philippines, I'll grab it. But, yeah, I don't have one at the moment.
You should just go to JB right now.
Well, that's actually a good point. The Boxing Day sales are on, aren't they? Yeah. I was actually in JB Hi-Fi earlier today.
Oh, no. What were you getting?
We're just looking around. Actually, that's another interesting point that I was going to make. We were looking around for a co-op game that you can play split screen for Xbox One. That's an RPG type game.
Probably doesn't exist.
Well,
did you find one?
There are a couple. So, I mean, if you want to go on kind of the more basic end, there are the Lego games, which aren't really RPG. I mean, they've kind of got some elements, but they're more kind of puzzle and campaign type games. There's a game called Divinity, which a gentleman at EB Games suggested. He said it's quite fun, but it's not really RPG. It's just more of a campaign type thing with lots of puzzles that you can tackle. And there's Diablo, which to me it's got like that top down view. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
yeah. You're sitting over the game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
But not really what you're after.
I like to be able to see my character's back, or see from my character's point of view. I think that's my favourite view to have. Actually just looking through their eyes. And yeah, the only alternative is get another Xbox and then sit next to each other on two screens and play on Xbox Live.
Yes, and another TV.
Yeah, and another TV. Which isn't ideal. So, yeah, I guess we're kind of stuck with those two options, Divinity or Diablo. Not that they're bad options necessarily, but it just seems ridiculous that there aren't more games out there.
Yeah, split screen's going the way of the dodo.
Which is, I don't know, honestly, I find it ridiculous, but
it is
just the way it is.
It is ridiculous. They're missing out on a market. Like, consoles are for home. They are for in front of the couch. But they're just going more and more the way of the PC, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the obvious exception to that is Nintendo.
Well, that's true. That's true. They're making
Still
far
trying
more
to
of an
tackle
effort.
that market.
Yeah.
But all their products are ridiculous, so...
I don't know, the Switch has done very well, and everyone says probably the two best games that came out this year are probably their ones in terms of what's the one with Link?
Zelda,
the new Zelda, and then also the new Mario Odyssey one. People love those two games.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Classic characters, but done really well. Apparently.
I thought that the Switch was really stupid and that nobody liked it that much.
I mean, it's quirky, but no, people tend to really like it.
Oh, really?
I haven't heard too many people complain. Like, there's complaints here and there, but as an overall package and what you get and the games that are available, it seems like Nintendo has done really well this time. Unlike the Wii before it. Well, I mean, the Wii U. Wii was pretty big too.
Yeah, I think the Wii did well.
Yes, but the Wii U, they were really struggling to move those units.
Yeah, okay. Wow. Well, that's fantastic news. And they've got a new console on the way, don't they?
A new one?
Yeah.
No, the Switch the Switch only came out like early this year, so they're not going to bring out a new one. They might bring out an updated one at some point to give it a bit more oomph, but I'd say that's at least another 12 months away. At least.
Actually, do you know what we never followed up on? The Atari. What happened to that?
Oh, the new Atari. Good question. What did happen to that? I haven't heard anything else about that.
Oh, okay.
Not Atari Box, I think, .com.
Yeah, something like that.
It still says crowdfunding soon, so I guess nothing has actually happened yet. Whether it will or not, who knows. I do like the look of it, though. The old school consoles with the wood paneling. Very retro.
Well, look, it could be amazing. I guess we'll have to wait and see, won't we?
Yeah, but for the moment, maybe you could almost think about getting a Switch. It does seem fun, and for, local multiplayer, it's pretty good, I think.
Maybe it's the way to go. I've got to say, this Xbox One that I bought hasn't really been the investment I would have liked it to be. Because I kind of that's what I like to have in my consoles. I like to have local multiplayer, like the co-ops.
Yeah.
Where you can do split screen. And there's just nothing for it. I mean, I have one friend who I play Call of Duty Zombies with, and we really enjoy that. But for me, I suppose right now, console gaming it's never going to be about sitting down and playing it while sitting down and playing it and trying to be competitive online. Because
you're not good enough.
I suck. Yeah, I'm terrible. And B, I just if you're a casual gamer, it's actually just not very fun to do that.
No. Yeah.
Because you're playing against people who play a lot more than you, and you just inevitably suck. And if you can't be good at a game, for me at least, I just don't really enjoy that side of things. And I mean, David, you and I play StarCraft very rarely, and we had a winning tactic at one point. But generally speaking, we get our butts kicked.
We do.
But that's on PC, and I feel like on PC at least you can try to be competitive. But on my console, I've basically forgotten how to use the controllers now, and you've got to learn all the buttons, and it actually requires hours to put into it. And I don't have hours to actually learn these games. So if they're not games that I've already kind of built up a bit of playtime in, I'm just not going to have the time to do it.
Yeah.
So maybe Nintendo is the way to go because, Xbox is just not really doing it for me. And I don't really play my console anymore.
Yeah, well, Nintendo have always been looking for family entertainment. I guess they're like the Disney of the console market, of the games market. And I guess they still figure families are sitting around a TV together, even if no one else is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe it's the way to go. Maybe if I go into EB and I can trade my Xbox One for a Switch, I might do that. I've got a few games as well.
You probably could, yeah. I mean, the Switch is Well, the original Xbox is now cheaper than the Switch, but not by a heck of a lot. So with a few games chucked in, and you've probably got an extra controller.
Yeah, well, I've got 4 controllers actually.
Oh,
so.
okay. I feel like you might even come out slightly ahead. They might chuck in a game for you or something.
I wonder if it'd be better to try and put it online though.
Yeah, it probably would be. Like the trade-in rates are never that generous.
Yeah.
You would be better off logging it on Gumtree. How's your Airbnb going?
Yeah, my Airbnb. So, just to give our listeners a bit of a backstory here, I've never used Airbnb before, but 2 days ago on the 24th of December, not to give away when we recorded this as opposed to when it's been released, but 2 days ago, I had my first guest check in. So, someone from Melbourne. So far, he's messaged me once to ask me how to use the TV, which I gave him some instructions for, and I haven't heard from him since. Basically, my house is set up in such a way that... So I still have some of my personal stuff there, like my wardrobe has all my clothes in it, and I've stuck a sign on it saying, please don't use this wardrobe. If you want a wardrobe, there's one in the living room. There are 2 beds in the house, both of which are available to the guests. And they can use the fridge, which has some of my stuff in it. So it's got some of my food in it, but they also have like a few free shelves to themselves. And some of I've basically cleared cupboards for them to use and stuck signs saying, please use me, along with all the plates and glasses and stuff.
Okay.
So
how long are they in there for?
So my current guest is there until the 30th. And on the 30th, he is going to check out, and then someone else is going to check in later in the day.
How are you managing that when you're not here?
So a friend of Samantha's is actually going to manage the house. So as I've told you, David, I spent on basically a day before my first guest was checking in. I spent about 9.5 hours deep cleaning the house. So hopefully that will mean that the floors might just need a bit of a vacuum.
Yes, you messaged me at 6 a.m. saying you're up until 1. You didn't get a lot of sleep that day.
I did not. No, it was horrible. So basically, yeah, I worked from 8 o'clock through to 1:30 a.m. and then from about 7 a.m. through to 11:30. So it's about 9.5 hours or 10 hours of just solid house cleaning.
Well, that's like $1 million now.
Well, I think it needed it, to be honest with you. Like it just needed a bit of a clean. But now that it's had it, hopefully it won't need it again, at least for the duration of my holiday. So this person, she's just going to go into the house, change the bedding, wipe down the surfaces, replenish whatever needs to be replenished, and that'll be it. Bob's your uncle.
Well, it sounds like you've got it all sorted then. Are you getting a decent rate? I suppose so.
Well, it's at about $80 a night. $80 or $90 a night.
Okay, that's not bad.
Which is alright. Which is okay. And especially because these are my first guests, I don't really know if I could be charging more. Just because I don't know if I can...
You don't have any reputation.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess I'll see how these particular batch of guests like it, and if I get good scores, then maybe I'll be able to get more in the spare bedroom while I'm trying to find a housemate. I've got to say it's all been a bit of a hassle though, so... I would have preferred to have someone living there than have to go through this, but, you know, it is what it is.
You didn't manage to find anyone then? I mean, clearly you didn't, but that guy that you were messaging and anyone else, all of them flaked out like those previous 3, did they?
Yeah. Oh, it annoyed me so much. Yeah, basically. I've had several people flake out on me. I'm currently in contact with a few more, but I haven't kind of been able to sort that out. So
no, well, you can't do anything now, I suppose.
It's all just been a bit of a hassle.
Thanks again for joining me, Alex.
Not a problem, David. Pleasure as always.
You can follow and get in touch with us on Twitter at Tangential Soup, and you can find this week's show notes with more information about today's topics at tsp.fm/30. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider sharing it with anyone you think might also, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
Ciao.
So you want to talk about our bowling adventure, Alex? You were down here for a bit of a pre-Christmas family gathering
I was indeed.
back in good old Victoria.
Yes, and there was a bit of an incident in the bowling lanes, which you were a witness to.
Which was hilarious. Little did you know when you were putting your name down what it would lead to.
Yes, yeah. So basically, just to give our listeners a bit of context, I don't bowl very often. This is 10-pin bowling we're referring to, and probably the majority of my bowling was done when I was younger. And as our listeners may or may not know, when I guess in the early days of the bowling lanes, you can only put 3 characters in for your name, which was obviously some ridiculous system restriction.
Oh, is that where it comes from?
Yeah, that's where it comes from. So, in my youth, I used to very maturely put my name down as Pooh, or Wee, or something else equally immature, or Bum. Bum, I think I used a few times. So as a throwback to that, David, when we went bowling, I decided to put my name down as Pooh. And
I very boringly put David.
Yes, because obviously those restrictions no longer apply. You can put as many characters in as you like. And you were David and I was Pooh. Now, this was fine for our first game.
It was, yes. And this is, of course, displayed above the lane in which you were bowling.
Yes,
a lovely television display.
Yep.
Keeping track of your score.
Yep. So you won our first game quite convincingly.
Margin.
And I think the first one was convincing. The second one was a bit marginal.
Well, I mean, the second one we ended up bowling for each other, but that's a different part of the story.
Yeah, anyway, so you won our first game and we were going fine. And I think one bowl into our second game, one of the attendants came over and asked us if we'd like to move because there were a bunch of children coming into our area. And I think they wanted to, they were being nice to us, essentially. I think they didn't really need us to be out of there. They could have fitted the children in around us.
Yes, because the bowling alley was split into sort of 2 sections. There's a smaller section with like 4 lanes, and then the bigger section with maybe another 10.
Yes, exactly.
And so there was a children's party coming in, and they asked us whether we could move to the bigger section from the smaller section, so the kids could just run wild in that smaller space.
Yeah, which we agreed to. And we got set up on our new lane, and the children came in to the waiting area, which was located right next to where our new lane was. And we were kind of right on the edge of the larger area, and we had I guess it's almost like a viewing runway on the side of our bowling lane. So the children were actually lined up along the side of our lane watching us bowl. And I think on the very first bowl that we made there, I got a strike.
You did, yeah.
Which impressed them a lot. And the children were probably, I don't know, maybe 10-ish years old.
Yeah, probably around that mark.
So some of them, unfortunately, could read. And it didn't take long for a pretty loud chant to go up among the kids. Every time I stepped up to the lane.
Go Pooh!
Go Pooh, go! Go Pooh! Go Pooh, go!
Across the entire alley.
God. They were so loud and it was so embarrassing.
The best part, though, was when you got, like, the next strike and they held out their hands sort of across the barrier so you could just high-five them running back.
Yeah, and they were still cheering me as Pooh.
Yes.
I don't know. What can you do in that situation aside from...
Just own it and roll with it.
Yeah, exactly.
They were chanting out my name a little bit, too. It was good
to
have a little old cheer squad there.
No, they were. And I think that, they supported us both fairly equally.
They did,
just,
yeah. And then all the rest of them got their shoes and then they ran off before our game finished. But, for that period of time, it was hilarious.
Yeah, that was a bit embarrassing. Even for me, that was a bit embarrassing.
I did love when you wrote that name down and the woman looked at it and she went, charming.
Yes. Well, you've got to expect that, don't you?
Yes. I didn't realise that was the origin, that you only had 3 letters to work with.
Yeah.
As little as you might bowl, I never bowl, so I didn't realise that was the thing. But that makes some sort of sense. Though it doesn't explain the name Dr. Poopy.
Which comes from where? Where do I use Dr. Poopy?
You used that in Call of Duty 4, and then somehow Josh ended up with that account, but he swears that you came up with the name.
I think I did, yeah.
But then he owned that for years. And because he was really good at Call of Duty 4, that name became respected in COD
Really?
4. Yes.
Wow, that's hilarious. Yeah, he was in the top 100 something, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, he played for a long, long time. The amount of hours he sunk into that game. Yeah, he was one of the better ones.
That's hilarious. Dr. Poopy became famous because of me.
Yes.